On July 23, 1984, law enforcement officials in Burlington, North Carolina stood before cameras and announced an arrest in the 1976 rape and murder of 25-year-old newspaper copy editor Deborah Sykes. After nearly 8 years without resolution, Darrell Hunt, a 19-year-old black man at the time of the crime, was in custody. The message to the public was clear. The case was moving toward justice. What no one yet knew was that the most definitive evidence in the case, the DNA, had not been tested in any meaningful way. And when it finally was, it would not support the arrest. Deborah Sykes disappeared on the morning of August 10, 1976, while walking to work. Her body was later discovered in a field. She had been sexually assaulted and killed. The crime deeply shook the community. Investigators collected biological evidence, including semen. In 1976, forensic science relied on serology, blood typing, and enzyme analysis methods that could narrow possibilities but not uniquely identify an individual. Years passed without an arrest. In 1984, authorities charged Darrell Hunt. According to trial transcripts, the prosecution's case relied largely on witness testimony. Several individuals claimed Hunt had made incriminating statements or had been near the scene. The state also presented serological evidence, arguing it was consistent with Hunt and did not exclude him. His first trial ended in a mistrial. In 1985, a second jury convicted him of rape and murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Hunt maintained his innocence. In 1989, the North Carolina Supreme Court overturned his conviction, ruling that the trial court had improperly limited cross-examination of witnesses. He was retried in 1990 and convicted again. By the early 1990s, DNA testing technology had advanced significantly. Hunt's attorneys sought post-conviction testing of the preserved biological evidence. Court records confirmed that the samples were still available. When modern DNA analysis was conducted, the results were definitive. The semen recovered from Deborah Sykes did not match Darrell Hunt. The exclusion was documented in court filings. In 1994, a judge vacated Hunt's rape conviction based on the DNA findings. However, prosecutors maintained the murder charge, arguing that even if he had not committed the sexual assault, he could still have participated in the killing. Further testing and continued legal proceedings followed. In 2003, the DNA profile from the crime scene was matched to another man, Willie Grimes, who was already incarcerated for a separate offense. The match was confirmed under modern forensic standards. Grimes later pleaded guilty to the rape and murder of Deborah Sykes. In 2004, prosecutors formally dismissed all remaining charges against Darrell Hunt. After nearly 19 years in prison, he was exonerated. Court records and official statements make clear that the DNA evidence both excluded Hunt and identified another perpetrator. The scientific findings directly contradicted the theory presented at his trials. Reviewing the case reveals several documented factors. The arrest occurred before DNA testing was available. The prosecution relied heavily on witness testimony, some of which later proved unreliable. Early serological evidence lacked the precision of modern genetic analysis. The preserved biological evidence, once tested with improved technology, reshaped the case entirely. There is no indication in official rulings that DNA results were fabricated or manipulated. Instead, the central issue was timing. The most conclusive scientific method did not exist at the time of arrest or trial. The public announcement of Hunt's arrest conveyed confidence and closure. The correction of that conclusion unfolded slowly through appellate decisions, laboratory testing, and additional investigation. Deborah Sykes' family endured decades before the true perpetrator was identified. Darrell Hunt lost nearly 2 decades of freedom before the evidence established his innocence. The legal record documents the sequence clearly. The suspect was arrested. He was convicted. The DNA came back, and it did not match. Only years later, through post-conviction testing and continued legal review, did the scientific evidence override the earlier verdicts. An arrest can suggest certainty. It can reassure a community that justice is within reach. But in modern criminal investigations, certainty ultimately belongs to the evidence. And sometimes, that evidence speaks long after the headlines have moved on.